the 14 News Podcast.
Welcome to the 14 News Podcast with your host, James Coppert.
Oi, I'm Minkers. Welcome to the 14 News Podcast. Another interview and a re-interview of our original interviewee. So, just a disclaimer, I did ask for some people to send in questions on social media, and then my battery died, so I had no way of accessing social media, and I couldn't ask them. But never mind, hopefully it's still a very interesting interview. I think it is. So this one isn't a video interview because it was in person rather than via the Zoom platform, which I normally record the interviews on, but a few people have said I should still put them on, so I'll do that just as an audio only file as well, so people can check that out. A couple of people have sent in actual questions, so thank you very much for those. I have seen them. I haven't replied because I could have replied on the main show when I record that. But let's not have me yapping on for ages. Let's just get down to this brilliant interview with Pamela Hayward, medium. She's been part of my investigation team as well, and I think she's brilliant. So let's just go straight to it. So many years ago, the first ever guest on the 14 News Podcast was Pamela, who is joining me again tonight. Hello, Pamela.
Hello, James.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
I think we've both gone on a journey since then.
Absolutely.
Two people that were listening in those days to now. But it's really exciting to have you back, and I think a lot of people won't have heard that interview because it's probably been cut off the 100 list. So we can start afresh really and going right back, talking about your learnings and your teachings and what it all means to you. So how would you describe yourself? Instead of me introducing you, how would you describe yourself?
I suppose the word that most people would know me as is a working medium. Some people would say clairvoyant. I'm not clairaudient unless spirit world are telling me off. But then I can hear them clearly. That's only happened once. Lots of the clairs are all the things to do with sensing the spirit world and working with them to prove survival to those who've loved and lost people that they really care about.
Okay. Let's go all the way back to...
That's a long word, James.
to the very first time that you realised this was a journey you were going to go upon. How did that occur?
My clearest memories, they're probably not the only ones, but the clearest ones to me, I would have been around 9 years old, and I used to not be able to go to sleep on a night. Late on, I would be woken up by the sound of drumming.
Interesting.
So I would hear the drums and I would have visions. So I would be able to see myself in a particular Native American camp. And I knew, even at that young age, I understood that I was sat with the elders.
Right. And was it like Native American tribal drumming that you were hearing?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And they were clear for me to see.
Right, okay.
So I could see who was there and I could see the rocks that we were sitting upon and the fire. And the drums were there and I was being communicated with really by them. But I was only, obviously, like I say, 9 at the time, so didn't really know what was going on, didn't really understand it.
And I guess you wouldn't have known much about Native American culture either.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. But I was not afraid. I was not afraid. It was quite a regular thing. It was very comforting, and I had no one to ask really. It was one of those things. I think it was my thing. It was in my head. It was my awareness. And I was going through some, let's say, my childhood experience was not easy.
Okay.
So as part of that, some of that childhood, I would astral travel.
Right.
So I knew that I would be in the corner of the living room, looking down on my physical body being seated and looking like it was reading a book, but I knew that I was elsewhere. So I could escape the body, as it were, and observe what was happening.
Was that something you learned to do, or was it something that originally happened by accident?
I think it was an automatic thing.
Right,
I don't think any
self-preservation thing.
Kind of. I think it was one of those things that it's kind of like the jumping around. I'll jump around a little bit. So it's through my spiritual development that I know through my spiritual development that we choose our family and our parents and all of our life journey because of what we can be taught.
So that's it. That's pre-life, is that?
It is.
Yeah.
And because we come up on the airplane we've got a job and a mission, we forget that mission because those that work with us from Spirit Side hold that mission. You've to come here without remembering it because you've got to have that experience of trying to find things out. But it's through that reflection and it's through that understanding that I would have been given the family dynamic and the situation that I was in order for my learning, in order for me to be the black sheep, the one that had to set out on that journey, so that I could understand all of the things that I learnt over time. Because if it's easy, then you don't. It's when it's hard that you have to dig deep and you have to do a lot of work on yourself, a lot of your own learning, and but it's through that understanding that was I put in those positions in order to experience astral travel, so that then I could do it, not necessarily at will, but I would at least understand it. It's also through astral travel in sleep state that we learn about deja vu, because we're taken to the places that we're about to experience so that we're less afraid.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So when we go to sleep, we don't sleep. Our little spirit goes off on a journey.
Right.
The body might sleep, the body might rest, but we don't. We go off because we're always attached to our body by a silver cord, they say, until the moment where we lose that connection at death. So we go off. We have a spirit team when we come to the earth plane because we're given a job, we're given a purpose, and we have a team that works with us from Spirit Side. And so if they know that there's something coming up that will be potentially difficult or something where we might need to have a little bit of faith, for example, or a little bit of reassurance, we can be taken on those journeys. We can astral travel to those journeys, and you'll go somewhere and you'll kind of go, I know this place, I've been before. And that's where we're taken in sleep state. We can have a bit of a wander and go and experience things. So I think that the childhood experience allowed me to have those experiences so that they were familiar.
Yes. Can I ask us, because I think for you it might be normal, but I think for other people who'll be listening going, why weren't you scared as a child? Because they would find that scary. Why do you think you weren't scared?
I think because the spirit world know the steps that they need to take in advance of that. And I think you're prepared in small details, you're prepared in small ways, in the subtle ways, in the reassuring ways that you might not even notice are happening,
right,
kind of thing. But like I say, even the journeying and being in the camp, I was very comfortable. I knew that I was safe. And did I, in and amongst there, understand that I was one of them?
Right.
You know, I was one of the Council of Elders. I was part of that.
How long did it feel like when you were there?
I don't think I can tell you how long it felt. I think it's one of those things that it happens and it's that loss of time.
Yes.
I don't think you really know how long you're anywhere. And to this day, I have a significant love of drumming.
Yeah.
And rhythm and the indigenous way of life, you know, which quite happy to go wander about by myself, you know, very much the sort of sea witch and listening to the tide ebb and flow and the natural world and noticing it, noticing the animals and the creatures and the movement of the wind and the sun and everything that's around us. We forget that. We go about our lives quite blinkered.
Even more so, I think, in current kind of ways of living, aren't we? We're so attached to technology, we almost forget that.
And I think that's exactly why it's being manufactured the way that it has. That it does keep us glued to it. Consumerism has gone in such a way, and the world has gone in such a way that we don't have that anymore. We're always doing. We're always doing instead of being.
Yes.
And it's the being that's the really important part, and it's the questioning, as we talked. We talk about it quite regular. You know, it's that being alert, being observant. You know, what's the world trying to show me? What am I meant to learn from this? That's my biggest question. What am I meant to learn from this? Because there is always something.
All those serendipitous moments as well that people probably miss because they're looking at the phone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because lots of us are not even in tune with our own energy. We're not in tune with how we feel, what we need to do about that. That's one of the things that I try very hard to work on myself about, is that for someone who works with healing energies, is one of the ways I kind of like say to myself is that you can't be a healer and not heal yourself. I should be as well as I can be if I believe and work with those healing energies.
Yeah. And when you went from being that child having those experiences, when did you start learning that there was communication and this was a skill that you could learn and develop?
I think it was a process as much as anything else, and I think it's like most things in life. You don't really understand where you started until you get to a point where you look back. It's the looking back where you start to understand it. And for my generation, I was reading the books of Doris Stokes was a big one for me. So I was reading Doris Stokes books, Doris Collins, a lot of the spiritually significant people of the time that were kind of like in the media, that were much more known about. But it was their stories that I was reading. And then, because the spirit world allow you to go through your teenage years and your sort of like early adulthood, finding out who you are, and they kind of tend to back off. They back off pretty much. Most children kind of lose their connection to the spirit world clearly somewhere around the age of 7-ish. Because the spirit world allow you to do that aspect of growing up, so that you can find out who you are, so that then you set off on your journey. So I'd done that kind of stuff, got married, had a family, and yeah, things weren't great. And I walked into the first spiritualist church that I'd ever been in. I'd read that there was an open circle, didn't know really what that meant, walked into the church. And this gentleman was there. He used to read poetry, write his own spiritual poetry. He'd never given communication before. And he was as shocked as me that he was used to give communication to me.
Right.
But that communication that he gave me was, you have to do what's right for you. That wasn't a straightforward thing, because what was right for me was probably not ever going to be right for my children. And so that was as much of a dilemma as it was no clarity in that. So, and that kind of like started my journey. So decisions made. I went back to church on a regular basis. I sat in lots of different open circles. I watched mediums work. I attended workshops and all of those kinds of things. And through those experiences, you find out lots of things. I would, in Open Circle, I would get communication from different mediums who I'd never seen before, who were giving me information about me that I knew they couldn't possibly know. You know, and as somebody I'm Capricorn, so I want to be sure that this is real. So I will absolutely look for all the potential fraud, all the potential bad behaviour that you could be given, but couldn't work it out how all of these people could give me very different information, completely unknown to them, that was really, really evidential to me, to unpick it, to find out that there has to be some truth in this. And through that journey and through that learning and through that practice, you kind of establish your own practice and your own way of working. And I learned, because the job for me, absolutely, really 100%, is our job is to prove survival. And to prove survival, you need to evidence someone who has lived on the earth plane. That the person that you're working for can recognise and know who that person is. And it's not always by name. It's a little bit like the Guess Who game. Right, have I got a male or a female? Roughly how tall are they? What's their hair colour? What are they dressed in? What shoes are they wearing? You know, that description that you are given by the spirit world can be enough. You don't necessarily get, oh, I'm Mary Smith from 34 Bridge Street and this is my postcode and my telephone number. There are some mediums that do work that way. But the powerful thing is, if you evidence survival, then you prove that life is eternal. At the point of proving that life is eternal, what it does is it brings absolute peace and comfort for the person that's living here. Because they then know that although we may cease to exist on this earth plane, we will be back with those people again. And it takes the sting out of life's tests. That's the big thing, is you start to realise, okay, well, I'm being tested, but it is absolutely not a matter of life and death, because it's just a life experience. That's it. So it takes the sting out of life. And that's the power of it. And with that comes the frustration, is that people out there who've never experienced a real mediumship reading have usually only seen someone who's psychic. And psychics read your auric field. Right. And your auric field contains all of the possible things that you could ever do in life. It's all of your opportunities. It's all the things that you could choose. You may not do, because each day we have free will. So a psychic reads your auric field, which has truth in it. And that's why if you go for a divination reading like tarot, that will be accurate because they're reading your auric field. You'll recognise it. It does feel comforting. But that's then where that ends. Right. They're not proving survival. And that's where people misunderstand the difference between the two. Because you might go away having been told at your psychic reading, this is going to happen in 3 months or in however long, and then you can look forward to this or that or the other. But actually you can also leave and think, ooh, I don't want that to happen. And at that point, you've used free will to actually completely change where you're going in the future. And so then, was your reading correct? Or would you have made that decision anyway? The power of mediumship is to prove survival.
I think you're being a little too generous there, because I'm quite hard on mediums on the whole, because I absolutely believe in some people's powers, but the majority also don't read auric fields, some are a bit mad. I think some are just frauds, and there are some people who have, I've experienced that. I think I've met a lot of mediums, as you can imagine, with what I do. I think I've met 4 out of a couple of 100 that have been, my God, this is, well, one I didn't meet, it was on the phone. But yeah, but you were saying some reading your auric fields. What percentage do you think are genuine? I know that's really like quite an abstract one, but
Yes.
you must get quite frustrated as someone that I would say, and you've demonstrated on stage, you've demonstrated to in social situations I've been with you in, and on investigations, that you have some genuine ability. It must get you really frustrated with other people.
Some genuine ability. Ooh,
Well, that's what I mean. Some yeah, it is a genuine ability. So that's what I mean. You have this ability, but there are a lot. I can do it. I can cold read people and almost manipulate them, and like Darren Brown. I'm nothing like Darren Brown, but I have proven to people that I could tell what number between 1 and 100 they're thinking of just by minute lip movements. Yeah.
And because of the years that I've been involved in this, so this is what will I be now? 33 years, something like that I've been in the actual spiritualist church type movement.
Yeah.
And that's been my field. But obviously, then we've got to add in the time that Spirit were working with me like naturally. And what happens in the sort of like the learning field is that people will go to a set of, say, 6 workshops or whatever, and they will go to this and then we'll have this experience and it'll feel amazing. But what they don't realise, it's an ongoing training, and that training is a spiral. And so you might have learnt this, and then Spirit World will take you deeper, then you'll even deeper than that, and there's so much reading and so much learning and so much. It's your journey, do you know what I mean? And it's about what you're willing to put in, and that self-check. It's about when you've given some work, checking with somebody, was that good enough? Could I have done that better? Did I repeat the same statement over and over again? Did I use the same phraseology? Did I keep saying okay throughout my my whatever work I was doing? And what we find is that people will go through one class, and then they've made the business cards and they're out there thinking that they can do it all. What they don't realise is there's some really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And if you've not got the support of a mentor and you're not still involved somewhere where you've got good backup and good grounding, I've given really incredibly sensitive communication from those who've taken themselves over to the spirit world. Right. Young people who've been caught up in significant trauma, accident, car accidents, things like that, drug situations where they were never meant to go, and they're emotional. The families that have been left behind and all the people that they touch are really emotional. And there's a way of managing that communication so that, if you're not careful, is that the spirit side cry, I would cry as the medium, and the recipient is crying. But we're achieving nothing there because we're not evidencing anything. It's just an emotional meeting.
Yes.
When the spirit world actually want to come back and give that kind of reassurance that they're all right now because they've left the physical body. They don't have any of those limitations anymore. They don't have that experience. They're being loved and cared for in the spirit world because that's the place where only love exists. And again, those are the kinds of things that those who criticise mediums don't understand, that actually you're giving real comfort here, that people are not lost anymore, that they're with their family, they're being taken care of. It's massively reassuring for those people on earth. And the comfort element is really significant. It helps you understand your life's journey. It's the power of it, it's the magnitude of it, but you've got to want to keep working, you've got to want to be the very best that you can be. And for lots, they don't get people challenging them and saying, you really need to go back and learn a bit more, you need to do a bit more of this, you need to expand here, there and everywhere. And they're setting up groups and they're taking money in, and then their tarot readings go up and they're wanting 30, 40, 50 quid. And yeah, as you can tell, I struggle and challenge this. I find it very it's unprofessional, it's unfair, and that's where we end up with a bad name of, like, you know, making money out of those who are vulnerable, you know. And people who do challenge us will have no idea how many readings have been given for free.
Yeah.
You know, my work has always been about bringing that comfort and that reassurance and all of that kind of stuff, and that's been effectively the measure of it. I've given countless readings and countless evidence for those who were significantly in need, you know, and it's the right thing to do.
I think it's that sad thing, isn't it, with everything. And, you know, my friend Sam was really upset recently because, you know, you turn on the news and everything's negative. And I said to him, well, actually, the reality is, if something's on the news, it's not the norm.
Yeah.
And I think mediums only make the news when they rip someone off.
Yeah.
So every day, there's millions every day around the world of mediums doing readings. And it'll only be the one out of the millions every day that has ripped someone off that then gets in the newspapers. So, but in talking of that comfort, I've witnessed firsthand people that have received that, and I think I said to you before, even if it was all fake and they were paying for that comfort, there's still value in that, because I've seen people be almost like breathing some of their grief out just by going to a medium. But when, you know, it can be proven, and it is, and you will be drained, I imagine, from doing it as well. You're giving something of yourself. It is work, you know, and sometimes.
Not really, actually, not really.
Okay.
But I just would want to come back a little bit as well, because often the psychics won't know they're not mediums.
Right.
That's the fraud. That's the fraud that's perpetrated that I really struggle with. You know, you can be working and you need somebody to, like, let you know that you need to advance your mediumship, you need to put more effort in, do more learning, all of that kind of stuff. And even when you have done that, there'll be more to learn and more to learn. But it's that thing of people's ego being so big that it's like, oh, I can do this, look at me, you know. And
I'm chosen.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same with paranormal investigators, unfortunately.
Absolutely. But the thing that I'm very aware of is that those who come to us seeking that comfort, seeking that communication, can put a medium on a pedestal, because we're doing something that's how do you qualify that? How do you quantify it to anybody? You know, how do you qualify that experience? How do you explain that? So people are mesmerised by it and very impressed by it if they get communication. Whereas the work that we do is, I am nothing more than a receptionist. And that's what I make very, very clear. You know, every communication is experimental. You don't know what's going to come through, how it's going to come through, because spirit world keep you on your toes, because they don't let you get comfortable. So that practice and that development is always ongoing. But because you're on that pedestal, it holds a great responsibility. And as the receptionist, and this is how I teach it, I'm effectively the kind of receptionist as in old school, where receptionists used to put one wire in to connect a phone call to another wire. That is very old school, but I'm sure you can all look it up and find out. And I'm hearing the person that's calling, as it were, from the spirit world, and I'm translating their message to the human who can't hear it for themselves from their loved one. And the spirit world use the medium's mind for that communication. So they will give you things that are close to the kind of thing that the person needs to hear. Often you won't get it word for word, because we don't all have the experience of everything. And this is the way that I've discussed it with you in the past, is I am not a quantum physicist. So if I got a quantum physicist through, I couldn't pass on the messages about quantum physics to whoever they wanted to talk to. It would have to be the best way that I could give it, because that's the only information I've got. Much the same as even as a working medium, I'm unlikely to have any kind of conversation with Elvis Presley or Princess Diana, because they don't know me, and I'm highly unlikely to have somebody sat opposite me who was very close to either of them. So when you hear of those stories about, oh, and I was having a chat with, that makes me question things, because it's like, well, unless they were your best bud, I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I think I've spoken about this one before on the show, where we went, and I don't mean to be unkind to her because she seemed a lovely person, but I doubt she listens to this. We went to see this poet, and she was a channeling poet, and she was channeling poetry from Michael Jackson, and I remember just looking at Abby and saying, when did Michael Jackson become so crap?
And bizarrely, talking of poetry though, is that started for me in 1998.
Right.
And I just felt this real push to just pick up a pad. And I'd written a poem in like less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I had to rewrite it straight away so that I could read my own writing that had been scrawled so quickly.
Yeah.
And I've been writing for the spirit world ever since.
I'm really interested in that. I mean, you know, everyone knows that listens to this, I'm a poet as well, and I always say my poems come to me. Yeah. And I pick up a pen and I write it, and I often don't edit it. I just then read it, and then people, you know, that like did one at the weekend, and they go FNL when they've read it, because it's that, like, it emotionally hit them or something.
Yes.
So that I always find it intriguing. But are you channeling? Is that what you call it? Because I don't know hardly anything about this.
Yeah, I suppose you would say that. For some people, they would, because the alternative is automatic writing.
And what's that?
So automatic writing is where you would sit and hold your pen, and what you are writing would just flow very quickly from the pen.
Yeah.
But I know that from the way that mine works is it's through my mind first. So but then it's immediately through the pen,
right.
And it's written so quickly that I have a real job on keeping up.
Yeah.
So
for me, that like what I'm doing is not like that. This is I feel it's very much coming from me.
Right.
But it's just a consciousness that's arrived in that instance.
Well, I'd never written a poem before.
Right.
So I was like, you know, I was completely flabbergasted. I was kind of like, where on earth has this come from? Because this was like 5 years into my learning journey.
Yeah.
So, because we were talking about that part of development. So once I'd started going to church, that's when I then used tarot cards regularly, divination tools, because in that sitting and shuffling of tarot cards, it's quite meditative.
Yeah.
And it allows the spirit world to come through to you. And what people don't realise is that the spirit world have to work harder to come, let's say, down the levels to the energy that we're vibrating on the earth plane. We don't go up that high to them. They do more of the work coming down to us.
Okay.
But we all vibrate on different frequencies. A little bit like radio stations, is that, you know, we can be tuned in when we first starting, we're on a really poor frequency. We'll be on AM frequency, where it's got lots of crackles and interference, and you don't get your communication very well, and it's a bit laborious really, and you've got to work really hard at it, and it doesn't flow so easily. And then as you strengthen that, you might move to FM. So you move to FM, but each medium will be on a different frequency within the FM band.
Right.
And then as you refine it even further, then your digital, you've got a lot less interference, it's much clearer, it's much smoother, it's much easier. Still don't always mean it's perfect, but you've just refined moving into that frequency. Because when we're just chatting, like we're chatting now, we're operating on beta frequency. When we work with for the spirit world, when we go into active communication, we move into alpha. But in order for that mediumship to continue, we need to maintain that alpha frequency, which is why if you go see somebody who is a genuine medium, they don't want a conversation with you.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't want the conversation is because that brings you out of alpha and back to beta. Now, to try to get from beta back to alpha and talking to the same person is really quite difficult when you're a beginner medium. So you want yes, no, not sure. By giving the yes, no's not sure, then what you're also preventing is you're not feeding any information back to the medium. It's the medium's job to give you the information. And if somebody's if it's a no or not sure, it's for you to go back and clarify that evidence. It's not for them to try to work it out, it's for you. And then, you know, it just, if you're then moving even deeper and you're going into the healing frequency, then you're moving into theta. So it's much deeper, that you are much less involved, it's passive.
And how do you do that? How do you move into those spaces, frequencies?
It's just that change of kind of mindset, I would say. So we're actively chatting, so this is a conversation. Spirit world are unlikely to move in to my space unless they really wanted to pass the message on to you.
Right.
And it was urgent, so they will allow this to happen. But to move into alpha, I would know that the spirit world were around, or I would kind of slow down my thought process. I wouldn't be involved in a conversation with you. I'd kind of move somewhere in my mind, for want of a better description. And then when you move into theta for healing, is you're not actively really thinking about anything.
Right.
You shouldn't be thinking about anything because you should be passive. That's
So
the
is it
whole
like
point
a
of the healing.
trance-like state?
Yes, because they all are. They're all different levels of awareness. And so again, if you're going to somebody for healing, then they shouldn't be giving you spiritual communication, because it means they've come out of the theta and they've moved into alpha to receive a communication that they're going to give to you. So general rule of thumb, that shouldn't really happen. And it's those kinds of things, though, that are not passed on to the public. So if you're in this field, you would know, but if you're not, you wouldn't. And you'd just be grateful because they'd given you some communication. However, when that communication comes through somebody having healing, it's not active.
Right.
As in, it's not active because the person who's receiving it can't challenge that and can't say, no, I don't understand. They're just receiving it. Because the person that's delivering it, the medium that's delivering it, is not in active communication. So it's not a going backwards and forwards, which is your job as a medium.
Right.
It's to receive a little bit, pass it on, get your confirmation, yes, no, not sure, go back and either get the next bit because it's a yes, or going back for clarification because it's a no, not sure.
Right. And how, so got, while we were talking, there was some footsteps from around the corner, which has been interesting. When healing, how does that work? As obviously as much as you're aware of it, what's the mechanisms? That's probably the word I'm trying to use.
It's a similar principle to being the receptionist.
Right.
You are the conduit. You and your hands, or you can have your hands just away from the body, and that healing is given by spirit, from spirit side, through you as spirit form, to the person who's sitting there.
So it's like a flow of energy?
Yes.
Okay.
But you don't interfere with it.
Yeah.
So you don't direct it. So you could literally just put your hands on somebody's shoulders, leave them there, and that healing will be taken exactly where it's needed. And that's because the spirit world have a different vision than we do. We're quite narrow. We also make judgments on things. So you've got to be careful about how you ask for healing for people. So the spirit world can only help people as an act of mercy unless it is requested. Right. So if, for example, you're meant to keep doing your podcast for the next 20 years, but you're about to get run over by a bus, but you're doing really good work, the spirit world will do what they can to shove you out of the way, and it's only your ankle that's broken. Right. But you stay alive and you recover.
I wonder if that's why when I remember I was with my ex and we were stood on a spot and I was like, we need to go now. Don't know where that came from. And we went away and a car crashed on that spot. Moments later.
Yep, absolutely.
I just knew we had to leave.
Yep, absolutely. And they will do that kind of thing. The rest of the time, you need to ask. A little bit on Bruce Almighty, where ticker tape keeps coming out with all the prayers. But the prayers that we make shouldn't be specific.
Right.
So, because we don't know what the actual root of a problem is, the spirit will do. because they're higher than us. They've got a different vibrational frequency, so they can see differently to us. So, for example, if you saw a friend who'd recently broken their leg and they had a pot on and were walking with a couple of crutches, you don't ask for that leg to be healed faster. You just ask for healing to be given however it is needed, whatever's for their highest good. We don't try to influence it, because actually that person may need to be out of the workplace, or they may need the rest time that comes with that. So speeding that up is changing their outcome, and that's not for us to do. So, and I do it. I talk in my teachings. What I talk about as well is, for example, if I'm driving down the motorway and I see somebody that's broken down, the very first thing that I will do, because I'm not a mechanic, I won't help them if I pull up at the side of the road. I will just get in the way. But what I do on their behalf is ask that they are kept safe and protected, and that somebody comes to them as soon as possible. So I've asked on their behalf just for them to be kept safe and somebody to get to them as soon as possible. Because I can do that for them, because I know that that's allowed. I know that that's okay for me to ask the spirit world for that, because I'm not trying to direct anything.
Right.
You know, whatever's meant to happen afterwards will happen. But I've done what I can do, because they may not know that they can ask, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And just to go back to the poetry, is that coming from someone or somewhere else? when you're writing it?
I'll give.
Because you've got books, haven't you? You've books and books of all this poetry.
Yeah.
And so, can you explain how you perceive that, and also how you use it, or use it in your work?
Well, a couple of things that I'm just going to share with you, because one blew my mind, which the spirit world are very good at. They're very good at giving you the evidence, or giving you something that makes you question things, and again keeps your ego from going anywhere. So these were my early days. Like I say, 33 years ago, these were my early days. I was kind of taken under the wing of some of the ladies who were at the age I now am at, who ran their little home circles. So they would get together, and then they'd all have a cup of tea and a bit of cake afterwards. And, it was just nice to belong to that kind of... Because that's essentially, though, how spiritualist groups started. It was in somebody's home. And only then did it move into places that were bigger, because there was a need, because of the war and people being desperate for information about their loved ones. And that's a whole other programme. Really, and a whole other conversation about how the movement kind of like happened and where it went.
The Great War.
Yeah. And the wars, and the Witchcraft Act, and Fraudulent Mediums Act, and everything else that goes with that.
Poetry, we're talking about.
We were talking about poetry. Yeah, so in one of these circles, I was the youngest one. I was kind of like the baby of the group, with lots of lovely older ladies who really looked after me. And it was very early days for me, really early days. And I was doing my learning, and I was told by Sir Francis Bacon, because I was like, really didn't know this stuff as well. So he came through to me and said, you need to protect your work. And I'm like, who are you, in my mind? Because this is a mind conversation. And he said it was Francis Bacon. And this is how a lot of your learning goes, because you don't get the evidence until later on. You have to accept it, and then you have to do some other work around it in order to kind of understand it. And I didn't understand why my poetry needed protection until I understood that there's been some conversation as to whether Shakespeare's work was actually written by Francis Bacon. And it was like, that came quite a bit later. And it was like, oh, well, that makes sense now. But I'm thinking, literally in this group saying, why would Francis Bacon come to me? And so I was really thrown by that. The thing with the poetry and the writing, so I did lots of poetry. I think there's about 120 poems that I wrote in no time at all. Then my writings became much more like chapters, not really chapters, 2 or 3 pages at a time of guidance, advice. And although it's written to me, it's not me by name. It always starts with Divine Child.
Right.
And what I've learned is that when I read out loud the things that the spirit world have asked me to write, is that people get very, very touched. The vibration in the room changes. The words mean something to people. And I did a little bit of that with a local group the other week, and it brings comfort because they're all dated. So I date them. They're all in order of how I've written them. You know, there's no blank pages in between for additions or changes or whatever. And this lady asked for the 9th of January. And as I opened the page, I was very close to the 9th of January.
Right.
The year didn't matter. Read out what I'd written, and she understood exactly how that needed to help her. The dilemma for me about getting my work published back then was that that's when there were lots of things coming out where it was open a book on a page and that's what you need for that day.
Right.
So then publishers stopped taking any more of those because they were inundated with them.
Okay.
So mine has never been published apart from on my own WordPress. I've never done anything with it. But as I get older, I'm kind of like a little bit more, because 30 years or so ago, one didn't do vanity press. That's what it was called.
Right.
Whereas now, so many people are putting out their work,
Yes, yeah.
you know, through their own printing of their work. And I suppose that is a little bit for me, that I would like to get it out there so that people can take from it what they need and want from it. Because although I'm the one that's written it, it's not entirely guidance for me, if that makes sense. And if other people can benefit from that, then that would be amazing. I was gobsmacked. That first poem, I think I wrote 2 or 3 poems that night. Where did they come from? Do you know what I mean? That's where my mind was like, how did this happen?
So you felt it wasn't, because like I said, it comes from me, but I think it's a subconscious that's right, and you felt like it wasn't from you, it's from somewhere else.
Yeah,
like you were an aerial
inspirational, absolutely inspirational. But that doesn't mean I know who it's coming from.
Okay.
You see, that's the other thing as well, that when people talk to you about who they're communicating with from spirit world, unless you can see that spirit stood in front of you, kind of like making the voice shapes, you don't actually know who's talking to you. And that's why in your development pathway, the power of prayer is really important, keeping yourself protected. And that's where we've had our conversations about when we go work with the paranormal. You know, I am protected. I work with high level spiritual beings at times, because that's where I've chosen to pitch myself. That's where my vibrational energy is on. But that also means I get some quite tough assignments as well. Because you've got to be careful who you're opening the door to.
And if we've been called into a home, normally it's a bit of a tosser of a spirit, to put it bluntly, isn't it?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is why our family's in desperate need and wants us to
Yep.
to go out. I should point out that Pamela's part of our investigation team, for those that didn't realise that. If I wanted to do some channeled poetry, and I've tried, and I was like, and just nothing happened. How would one go about that? And how easy is it?
I think it's about your journey. I was really interested and intrigued about spirit communication, but I wanted evidence. I'm very much a realist, very cynical. My kind of like challenge to the spirit world is, this has to be good. It has to be right. There has to be real evidence here, which is why when I first ever started doing my work for the spirit world, it would be houses, the layout of houses and what was in what position that I would give to people. So it was houses and weddings. It was what they wore at the wedding, what colour the flowers were, because I wanted things that people could prove and absolutely knew 100%. And then when that became consistent, then when they threw other things in to give, I was strong enough to trust then, because all of the other stuff had been accurate. That was just really important to me. If I'm going to do this job, I've got to do it properly, and I've got to be able to deliver real evidence, valuable evidence that really makes a difference to somebody. Things that I absolutely cannot know, that are not plucked out of thin air, that are really understood by the person that's on the receiving end. And it's through that, I think, it was just one day, I just had a pad and a pen in my hand, boom, it was there. You know, they talk about like child prodigies who were influenced by those in the spirit world who were the composers of old. You know, if you've been the world's greatest composer, you're going to want to keep composing. You're going to still inspire somebody who's still here. Why wouldn't you? You know, same with the most renowned artists. They want to still keep using their skill to help somebody else in their work.
There's a really famous case, and I'm terrible with names, but a really famous case of a gentleman that was just a bit of you know, an artist as a hobby, but he wasn't that good, and then he got communication from a well-known artist, and then and it was sudden. The shift like was sudden. It wasn't a case of, you know, he'd gone learning. It was like 1 week he was this good, and the next week he was that good, and then even the art experts that have analysed his work couldn't determine they can see by apparently brushstrokes and how the hand works, and they were saying it is that artist that had passed away. It's identical. Yep. It's not a case of, you know, and it mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely, and that again is linked like the automatic writing. You know, a discarnate spirit takes over, and like, kind of, why not? But it's, are they coming to work with you out of good and love and joy? And do you know what I mean? Is it higher level stuff? Is it safe stuff? Are you protected? Rather than it being negative or dark or whatever, because they're not going to want to bring amazing work, are they? Do you see what I'm saying? So a lot of this is linked to who you are as a person. You know, and the artist that you're talking about may well have had whichever artist was coming in, linking in with him for quite a while until they merge, and then boom, then you're off. Which will have probably been what's happened to me. Keep practicing, keep pushing, keep drawing closer to her, you know, and then lo and behold, you've got some work, and it matters to other people. I've read it in lots of places, I've shared it in lots of places, and people are really empowered by it and really touched by it. There's a lot of emotion. People will be tearful when it's been read, and I suppose now that the world has changed, I can just potentially produce it somewhere, so that then it's not just my notebooks that get slung at some point in the future when I'm not here. So maybe there's some record of what I was given. But it's our journey, isn't it? And it's what you're prepared to put into it. It's look at all the research work that you do. You know, you do the research, you produce something, and this is the same thing. And that's kind of what you're looking at for the people that you go to for your readings. You want to know that they've carried on with their learning and their progression. You know, where are they at? What are they studying now? That kind of thing. What's their journey been like? Because if it's been a 6-week course and then they've got the business cards done, then thanks but no thanks, you're all right.
I think, like I said before, it's the same with a lot of paranormal investigators. They get, because it's a buzz, isn't it? You feel like if you've got some communication, you feel good. And the same with paranormal investigators. They're asking for some communication, they get it. And I think there's quite the fragility of ego to then go, well, I'm really special because I've got this. And actually, I think you can tell really genuine mediums and genuine paranormal investigators that are there for the right reasons, because you soon realise that you know nothing and you're constantly on this journey of learning, aren't you? You're never at that perfect point. You continuously, every day you're learning a little bit more.
But you can also be a very, very genuine person and hit a major snag. So I know, for example, somebody that was very committed to their learning, very committed to their development, but what they were doing was they were doing a lot of their development alone. So they were very, very focused on dressing all in white,
Right.
because of it being a pure colour,
Yeah.
and spending however long in communication with their spirit worlds, and only trusting spirit and not being challenged. I don't even know whether that's the right word, but not having normal communication with the people around them that work with the spirit
Peer
world.
mentoring, isn't it?
It is, but this was very, very significant, because the person that I'm talking about was a gentleman that was much older than myself at the time. The kind of person that you would never have expected to do what came next. I mean, we're talking a gentleman who was in his 70s, who was having communication with spirit, who was very committed to his spiritual path, but was told, or so he said, by those that he was working with from spirit side, that he needed to run into this restaurant and grab a knife, and he's waving this knife around in the street. Got him arrested and locked up.
Right.
Because he absolutely believed what his spirit workers were telling him, and there was no kind of like challenge to that. He wasn't sharing that with other people who could kind of like tone that down a little bit, or kind of go, come on, you know. So you get good people who get, maybe because they're not keeping themselves protected or safe, who draw towards them those who are, you know, like less than honourable spirit side. Because people forget that when you go over to the spirit world, you don't just grow wings and a halo and you're all of a sudden this massively spiritual being. You know, if you're an ass when you're here, you're an ass when you go.
There's that. I always get mixed up with an actual work of fiction with a similar title, but there's a book. Is it The Head Full of Hungry Ghosts or something? Have I got that wrong?
Not sure.
That could be the Tremblay book, but they were getting messages through and following them, and they were getting the piss taken out of them a little bit. So they were getting like lots of stuff that hit the nail on the head, but also something ridiculous. And all of them involved, because they were almost obsessed, they became quite poorly. How do you know, even when you're doing, say, the poetry or anything else, say someone wanted to start learning this, how do they learn to realise what's positive and what's negative? And also, when is it time to clock off, maybe?
That's the way to do it. It's about how you first ever start your practice. It's knowing that you need to open in prayer. Whatever your prayer is that is to the highest, the brightest and the best. It's about taking yourself to that level of understanding that, like I say, not everybody that goes over is amazing. You know, you don't grow wings and a halo like in the first 10 seconds. It just doesn't happen like that. And like attracts like as well. So you need to be careful of your own behaviours and how you operate. And am I a good person? You know, am I being the very best that I can be? Am I being loving? You know, because if you're not, you're going to attract that towards you as well. Excuse me, sorry. And so your prayer is powerful. And it's the first thing that I ever teach when I'm teaching anybody, any group of people, is closing down on a night is the most important thing that you can do. Knowing that actually these are my rules. You don't come to me in sleep state. My body needs to rest. That is not just because my mind is switched off, because I'm in bed. That is not when you come and talk to me. And so many people allow that to happen. Because what they then misunderstand is that spirit can come and communicate with you when you're in sleep state. It's like leaving your bedside light on. that's alerting the spirit world, you can come and talk to me, I'm available. Just think of Patrick Swayze in Ghost. We'll try any medium we can to get this message back to Demi Moore. So all those that have gone over that don't know there's a spirit world, who kind of go, oh, shit, I'm still alive, but in a different place, want to come back to their own Demi Moore and pass some message on to say, I'm still here, I'm around. When you get communication while you're asleep, for those who don't close down, you can't do anything with it. You are disturbed. Most you can do is write it down, pencil and paper. Where do you pass it on to? Do you even know who they want to talk to? So then you're disturbed, your sleep is disturbed, then you don't function. But if you can get into the routine of every night saying, night, God bless guys, I'm off to sleep now, don't talk to me until tomorrow, that's you establishing your rules and your boundaries. When you maintain that, your gatekeeper can maintain that intention, because it's about setting your intentions and it's maintaining those intentions. So in terms of your development, you do that thing of, you do the prayer, I'm ready to work now, please can the brightest and the best come around me, because that's the level you want to be working on. Keep yourself safe, keep yourself protected, because it's another intention. I don't want anything negative to come in. I don't want anything that's dark to come in. I want to feel safe. I want to be on this journey in a safe way. And then when you know that you've finished your work, whatever that is that then you close down, say thanks ever so much for being with me. We're done now. We've had our time. And then you go have something to eat and drink. That can be as simple as a glass of water and one biscuit. The reason you have that is not because you actually need your energy putting back in, it's because it's a physical act. Yeah. So in that physical act, you're telling the spirit world, I'm back in the physical. I'm not communicating anymore. And the more you practice this, what you then learn is if the spirit world really need to get a message to somebody, they will then butt in at a time you're not expecting communication, but you'll recognise what it feels like when they draw close. Because each person will have their own feelings, whether it's they feel as if someone's touching the top of their hair, or there's just that thing that makes the body shiver from head to foot. You know, it's you learning, what do I feel like when they draw close to me.
And are there other things other than the dead that can come and do this type of stuff? Because I don't always feel some of the stuff is necessarily a spirit. Are there other things around?
Like what, really? Because for me, everything's spirit in one form or another.
I mean, spirit that hasn't been a human being. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Of course there is. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean
So
that quite as...
Like nature entities and, you know...
Yeah, the elementals.
Elementals, and then we've got, I suppose if you're religious, you've got, depending on what religion you are, you've got the jinn or the angelic beings or demonic, you know, all this other stuff.
Yeah, because the world is full of everything. That's the whole point, is that the spirit world is the place where only love exists. The earth plane is where we come for our learning. It's where we come seeking that love again. It's where we can't get tested in the spirit world. If everyone's loving towards you, what are you going to learn? Not a lot. So you come to school, earth, which is school. And that's where you're tested. And it links back to my friend who got arrested, is if you're not protecting yourself, if you don't have a degree of realism, if you don't have the, oof, I don't like you, go away, if you don't send that away, then it's going to come around some more, because it's going to feed off your energy. You know, I know of people in my time who felt that they've been held down while they've been in sleep state, and that they can't move. But it's always been when they've been in a particularly fragile place as well. So it's unpicking some of that, like when you're vulnerable, are you asking for protection? Are you asking for healing? Are you reaching out to those who can help? You know, there will be some people that will love to have the chaos around them. Suits them. It suits them, because there are some people, for example, who like that drama. They like the drama, they like the chaos.
Yeah, I don't know how people can live like that.
No, and there are some people that like to be ill because they get care. They may not have had care in their lives. But if we're not looking at that and what's behind it, is that they will stay unwell because it might be the first time in their lives that they've received care from others. You know, so there will always be a motivation. I think there's everything. This is my belief. There is everything out there because this is the world we come to experience. And we don't know around us who's been here a number of times. Yeah. We don't know that. We don't know whether somebody's come on a particular mission. We know that earthly wise that there are things that are hidden from us that they allow to drip feed into the public domain. I've worked with extraterrestrials in my time. They've come through to circle. You know, when you meet as a group that meet on a regular basis, that are very, very committed, they know when it's safe to come through.
Right.
But they might be curious. There's a curiosity from them too, you know. Maybe they're sat in their own circle wanting to know about our little circle, for example. Everything is out there. Everything is out there for us to learn and experience from. But you can only experience it when you're in the right place for that experience, or for something that it's meant to teach you, or for you to then share with other people. Because otherwise we would stay stuck, wouldn't we? You know, if you hadn't have had your experience, you wouldn't have asked me, I wouldn't have worked for you, we wouldn't have got to the place that we're at, that then links to other people, that then takes it bigger. Every single thing is planned and organised to some degree for us to meet the people we're meant to meet, for each of our learning, so that it advances us and we learn some more, and we can discard some information that we may have thought was correct, and it might have been once upon a time, but then we grow. Everything grows and changes. I know how powerful it is to be communicated with by those who have got things they want to pass on. You know, I've had a lot of communication. As stated at the beginning, the American Indian culture is very, very powerful for me. And I'm always surprised if I get somebody new and I'm told who this person is. Like, why are you coming to talk to me? You know, but because I want to always maintain that I'm just a worker. That's what I'm here for, is my mission, is to hold the light, I guess, is what I would want to say. The faith is probably, I don't know, that's my faith, my belief. I know that the spirit world exists. I have worked in enough places with enough people who have not known me, and given them evidence that they could not have possibly known.
My neighbour recently, who wasn't someone that would ever go to a medium, probably didn't believe it and was just blown away.
And it's good when you receive that feedback. It's really, really good. But he needed it because he did want it, but he didn't want it because, you know, there's a lot of emotion attached to communication. And I forgot where I was going to go with that as well. Yes, about holding the light. The world itself, our world, our Earth, is going through turbulent times.
That was going to be one of my questions. Do you feel a shift at the moment?
Yeah, but we're massively pitched against one another, aren't we? But we're not only pitched against each other. There's that divide, isn't there, between the haves and the have-nots. Yes, it's always been there. We've always lived like this. Of course we have. But because there's a big shift going on as well at the minute, those who work spiritually are trying to hold the vibrational frequency so that we all kind of like stay together as much as we can, so that we build some level of shielding each other, of holding the flame aloft, as it were, because there are people out there who don't have that knowledge that life is eternal, who are lost, who are scared, a little bit like if a tsunami was coming, where'd you go, where'd you run? You need to run to the person who's your beacon. Somebody who says, do you know what, it's fine, don't worry, you know, I'm going to call on whoever we need to have around us. my whole journey has been about new spiritual people introducing themselves to me and leading me effectively by the hand to the next sort of level, showing me the next stage, offering me the next thing. And I never take it for granted. And I always work with humility, because it's such a responsibility, is this. It's a real responsibility. And there'll be people out there that would never believe it. Absolutely never believe it. And you'll never prove it to them.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to know. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's beyond fine.
Yeah, the same as I've known people where a ghost could say boo in front of their face and then throw something across the room, and they'd find a way to explain it away.
Yeah, of course they would. And often that's because if they really had to look into that and they found that to be true, then it blows apart the rest of their world. Yeah. Because all of the other things that they thought were true then have a question mark over them. And how do you navigate that? You know, how do you move on from that? How do you question everything? Your whole world's blown up. Yeah, it's gone.
Your foundation of reality is
of course it is.
Disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I've been challenged mainly by men in my time, and I understand why men do it, because men especially want the logical sort of element of how does this work as a function, and that's the part that's difficult to describe, because it's not really a function in that sense. It's much more of an emotional connection, you know, an empathic connection.
Is that why most? So out of those 4 mediums that I've said that I've met that were really mind blowing, they're either women or gay men.
Potentially, yes. Potentially, you know, I'm not saying that men can't do this work, because they absolutely can. But they need to break that barrier of needing to understand the clinical way of it working, and understanding it's just because often people don't understand that the spirit world only have your mind to work with. Yeah. And so, and this is something that I recount when I'm doing some of my teaching. I once worked in a church in Sheffield. I'd never been there before. And there was a lady sat in the congregation, kind of in my eye line, who was a white lady with blonde hair. But the spirit world wrote a name above her head that was not an English name. Right. And it was a name that I recognised from the book Heidi, that was quite significant to me when I was a kid. And so the very first thing I said to this lady was, "Oh, you're not English, are you?" Which is quite an opening gambit to actually say to a fair-haired, white-skinned female that sat in front of me, along with every other one in England, that. And she said, just looked at me and smiled, and she said, "No, I'm not." The word that they wrote, the name that they wrote, was not her name. It didn't matter. It was me doing that, working out that this lady in front of me is not English. And so, yeah, and she's gone on to develop her own mediumship as a result of that. And so you have to practice, because you have to know how it works. Yeah. And so one of my oldest childhood friends, her husband was doing, and I get it, I totally get it. It was like, it's kind of the, come on, if you think you're hard enough, prove it to me then. Yeah. And I've recounted this before, and all I saw in front of me was the triple cooling rack with 36 butterfly buns on it. Couldn't understand, random thought straight in my mind, gave it to him, his face fell. They were a household with 6 boys that came home to that every day, that, you know, mum had produced stuff for the lads to eat that was all on the cooling rack, usually butterfly buns. And he was like, kind of like, of all the random things in the world that I could possibly have plucked out of thin air, you know, that was it. I had another chap who was like, same sort of thing. Well, go on then. You know, and in that moment, I'm like begging spirit. I'm like, this has to be accurate. This has to be accurate. Total panic. And for him, it was the greenest grass I'd ever seen in my life. totally like emerald green, absolutely beautiful, surrounded by the most blue sea that I'd ever seen. And bear in mind, I'd not travelled, I'd never been abroad, so I could not have told you where that was in the world at that time. But across this green golf course was the biggest black snake I'd ever seen as well. So that's what I gave him, because that's what the spirit world had delivered in front of me. And he did the same thing, jaw dropped, and he went, I have literally just come back from a week's golfing holiday in Tenerife, and snakes are my biggest fear. Wow, it was. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, again, of all the random things. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that I gave, but some people do want to test you. And then you also equally will go into churches where there are some people who will take every message and believe that every message is for them as well, because they want more and more comfort. But that's when you need a really good medium, because you need that medium to say, this message is not for you. But you'll have weaker mediums that will just let that person take it because they've given it to somebody.
Yeah.
And there's also, and we've talked about this before, there's a big responsibility that goes with the work we do about delivering it carefully, delivering it kindly, not embarrassing or upsetting people. And again, my development comes often from watching people who behave not that well, even in churches. So there was a gentleman that was like totally inappropriate in my early stages. So a lot of my learning was sitting in a congregation, watching a medium work, but in my mind telling spirit world, either I do or don't want to work like the medium that's in front of me. If you ever make me work like that, I quit. And this gentleman, straightforward Yorkshire lad like me, flat cap on, the lot, turned to this poor young lass and talked about the child that she'd lost. But it was the way that he said it, because she'd made that decision. And he exposed that to the rest of us, to the entire group of people that were in that church. So at that point, everybody kind of did the gasp, how inappropriate. The easier way of saying that is, do you understand where there's a child that returned to spirit before it was born?
Yeah.
That's kind. It can be miscarried, it can be your personal choice. It can be a baby that's lost.
Yeah.
But you have to do it with that love and care for the person. It's different if you're doing a private one-to-one reading.
Yeah.
But still, even then, I would never, ever say that about somebody, because that's one of the really most difficult things that a woman could carry, or anybody that's involved in that kind of loss.
Yeah.
So and I think sometimes as well, the people that criticise mediumship don't understand the responsibility that goes with it. It's not a game. You have a significant job to do that's got real emotion behind it. And there are lots of people that know the impact on me from being very proud of, let's say, my skill set, my learning, my development, that allowed me to prove that somebody was no longer with us, and the place that he was would be found in a river. And the friend that I delivered that message to, who was friends of this person, didn't want to believe what I'd said. 2 weeks later, this body was found exactly where I said it would be found.
Right.
And a week later, he took his own life.
Right.
Because he'd had proof.
Yeah.
He'd had real proof of survival, and he wasn't getting that kind of comfort from his priest. His priest, who obviously was kind of like, stop talking to that woman. The kind of thing she's talking to you about, she shouldn't be talking to you about, type of thing. But I'm the one that gave the evidence. This is exactly where he will be found.
Yeah. And
he was. And that lived with me for a very long time, to this day. I sensibly know, and I know because I've had communication from him on any number of occasions since, that he would have gone at some point.
Yeah.
I actually gave him comfort. I gave him comfort that actually we live on. He had some evidence there that he didn't have before. But God, it made me feel so guilty. You know, there was a family and there were children left behind, and that rocks you. That absolutely rocks you. That you can be giving evidence, really good evidence, that you think is going to really help people, and then they're not here. Because of how powerful that was. I'll never forget that. No. Never. And he comes regular. He comes to help me with my teaching. He helps me with the groups that I run, and he comes through in communication through other mediums. And I'm very comforted by that. Very comforted, but blew my world apart when it happened.
Yeah, I can imagine. What has been the kind of most profound piece of evidence that you've witnessed another medium give someone?
Oh, I don't really know whether I even have an answer to that, because it's so personal. Unless you know the person really, really well, it doesn't have much meaning.
Yeah.
Because it has to be true to you.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
I can't bring anything to mind there. It doesn't mean I haven't seen stuff. It really doesn't. Because you see it so often where evidence is given and people become emotional.
Yes.
So I've seen lots of those. I just can't recount the reason because it doesn't pertain to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. If someone wanted to start doing your type of work, they're listening to this and that's something they'd like to explore, what are the do's and don'ts that are important?
The power of prayer is significant. You want to be linking to the highest, the brightest and the best. I'd want to be surrounded by people or go into a place where I respect the teachers that are in there, respect the wisdom, respect the rules, for example. So much as how all organisations have got their issues and all of that kind of stuff, Spiritualist National Union type churches have got to work to a particular level.
Right.
So I'd be in there.
Okay.
But I would also be following.
Are they international or just in Britain?
Spiritualist National Union has an international division.
It's called the International. Yeah, I should have clocked that. Yeah.
No. Spiritualist National Union. So that was the coming together of all the independent churches.
Right.
So a lot of the churches set up very early 1900s-ish.
Yeah.
And then they came together. So they came together in the union, but that union has an international division. So that's SNUI with a small I.
Right. Because
there are churches throughout the world. There are quite a few in various places, but they're quite patchy.
Yeah.
So it's finding where the groups are, who's delivering teaching, what are they offering, and go to as many places, as many teachers as you can, because some teachers will teach you how not to work.
Right.
And some teachers will be absolutely brilliant for you and bring you on, and then you're ready for the next one and the next one. You know, keep going, keep learning, keep reading, but just keep allying yourself to the highest, the brightest and the best. That's where you want to be. That's the place you need to position yourself to, because that way you're not having to deal with the chaos of the where there's, let's say, a little bit more how do I put it, where you might be misled.
Right. Yeah, there's the tricksters.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Spirits a lot, isn't there?
Yeah, but there are tricksters in physical form. Like we talk about, there are the frauds, they're out there. And the people who think they can do more or better than they can do, and they don't reflect. I remember being given my first church service, and I've been working spirit-wise for a long time, And coming down off the rostrum and saying, like, was that okay? Was that good enough? What do I need to do different? For me, that was a whole new thread then of what do I need to do different, you know, because I didn't know what I sounded like to people. You know, do I throw my voice enough? Can I be heard enough? Am I saying the right thing? You know, am I doing good work here? And that's the way you should be. You should be measuring your work based on what's your feedback. Are people coming back? Or do people not want to see you anymore because actually you're not delivering good evidence? And so I'm quite hard on myself for the sort of like the skill set and the level of work. And then that led me to being asked to deliver various teachings. So I've taught at any number of churches and shared my knowledge, because you need to learn from as many places as possible. There's hundreds and thousands of books out there. Go pick up second-hand books. Learn about the pioneers, you know, the ones who came after the Fox sisters in 1848. Look at the history. Look at where it comes from, what happened in the journey, what mediumship is like today, what skills do you need. I mean, don't get me wrong, I preferred it in the earlier days where they had their exponents committee. So when you gave a really good service, word would get round that you were a speaker worth booking. So it was much more based on your skill set than going training somewhere and getting yourself a little letter after your name that said that you could do services, because you were being judged by your peers. Because the way that you dress is counted. You know, do you turn up neat and tidy? Are you giving a really good demonstration of mediumship? Do you know what you're allowed to say and not allowed to say? So many people wouldn't know, for example, that a medium should never be diagnosing you. So therefore they should never sort of say, oh, I'm being given oranges, you need some more vitamin C. Because again, same principle, people have you on a pedestal and then they're out popping vitamin C pills left, right and centre and making themselves really unwell, because you are not a professional diagnostician. You're not a medically qualified practitioner. In just the same way, a spiritual healing it's complementary to the medical profession. It's not instead of, you know. And I mean, don't get me wrong, my evidence for spiritual healing was profound. So back in my early days, when I was like linking to those that I worked with from the higher side, as I call it, I'd got a friend who was extremely unwell. She was laid up in bed with a really significant back issue. And I know about the timings because I could hear the theme tune music from one of the soaps as I was laid in the bath. And so I knew it had probably only taken about 10 minutes to get into this communication and was linked into the worker that I work with for healing. And I saw him. I saw his hands open up my friend's back, like it was like watching it on like a projector screen in my mind.
Right.
So I could see the back open, no blood anywhere, just open. But I watched his hands going into her body and click all of her spinal bits and bobs back into place. Can't describe what exactly was moved, but dink, 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 everything was like aligned and the skin healed up. And it was like, oh, honestly, it was like, you know, a big deep intake of breath. Oh my God, what have I just seen? So I knew this was pretty much 20 to 8 at night. And at 10 past 8, I got a phone call saying, what have you done? I'm like, what do you mean, what have I done? And she said, I'm out of bed and I'm walking. I don't know how you fixed me, but I'm fine. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Do you know?
Yeah,
and so for me, see, that's how I work with the spirit world. They really need to prove it to me. And when they've proved it to me, then I believe. But it doesn't mean I'm still not challenging all the time. I'm challenging myself and I'm challenging them, because we have to be the best that we can be. Because I won't subject myself to the ridicule that is out there for other people. And sometimes I've got to like pull my big girl pants on and go deliver in public like I did with you other month, you know, to a group of people who would never ever have walked into a spiritualist church place. Not ever.
Yeah, I know there was one guy there who was like a hardened doubter of mediumship, and he was just like, wow, that night. Like, it totally changed his mind. Yeah.
Because the spirit world don't fail you. They don't fail you. You know, they would have known, because we had 50 people in that audience, and out of that 50 people, I'm not sure any of them would have gone to a church, to be fair. And like, what an amazing outcome for spirit, as it were. You know, all those people sat there having evidence of mediumship delivered with people who were really, really comforted by the communication they were given. And yeah, how do you argue that? I'd never met any of those people in that room before, apart from the ones of you that I knew.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody was an unknown. But I just did my job.
Yeah, it worked. It was like crazy to witness, and it was so profound for those two people that got that communication.
Yeah, but it was good for all the other people as well who were then feeding it back. You know, to Ian and Jordan, and sort of going, because lots of people have how they think communication works, and then they see it happen for real, and it's like it's not how they thought it went.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I'll go back to the same theme, is that I delivered their communication with yes, no, not sure, didn't want a conversation, that's not what I'm there for. If you ever see a medium who's having conversation and who's not giving evidence, so like, it's no good saying to somebody, oh, I've got your grandma. Well, yeah, my grandma would be in spirit, because otherwise she'd be 140 and still here. Do you know what I mean? And it's that kind of stuff. So when you see somebody saying, I've got your mum, I've got your dad, I've got your grandma, look at the age of the person. You know, we're taking a bit of a punt here that actually they are already gone on the other side. You want evidence. Well, all right, so you've got my mum. So what's she look like then?
Yeah.
You know, we go back to the guess who. How tall is she? What colour hair has she got? You know, does she wear glasses? Beard and a moustache? You know,
yeah.
Type thing. Work your way down. What do the clothes look like? I mean, I've had one of those experiences for real where somebody did materialise in my living room. That was surreal.
I thought that was going to happen tonight, but there seemed to be a bit of a build-up, and it wasn't like, oh, it sounds potentially like someone walking about. There was shuffling.
Yeah, I know.
In the hallway, but then the energy dropped again.
And that's why you need to work in circle. When you work in circle, you build your energy up through consistency, which is what they used to do back in the day. And that's why they had some amazing stuff happened, especially physical stuff.
So tell me about this woman who operated in your front room.
Well, yeah, so this was part of my learning. So I'd asked a friend if I could practice on her. So I was doing what's called psychometry. So that's where you take an item that belongs to another person and sort of see what you pick up. Essentially, it's psychic. It's just getting your psychic attunement in. And we're all psychic. Every one of us is psychic. We all know you'll go near somebody and think, oh, I really like you. I don't know why. I feel really comfortable with you. And then there are other people where you go, absolutely no chance.
Even all the way down the street,
yeah.
You can just go, no. Yeah.
So I worked, she wore 6 rings, 3 on one hand, 3 on the other, worked through all of these, gave her all kinds of information about her family. And then it was literally like, beam me down, Scotty. And this lady just appeared. Just appeared. And I was so involved in what I was doing that I didn't panic. It was just, oh, there's a lady in my living room. And gave the description from head to foot of what this lady looked like, and straight away she said, that's my grandma. There was no further communication came with that, because this lady had used all of her energy up in coming in effectively physical form for me to see. But that was powerful moments. but they don't come like that now. I don't see them like that because they don't need to.
Right.
They don't need to. They will come as that pinprick of light, that little golden orb or blue orb, something that just is that little glint out of the corner of your eye, and then it's just like, oh, hello, who are you? And that starts the conversation then. I just know somebody's present and then work with them.
I've had a bit of a moron visiting me at night. Had to have serious words, I don't know what it was. But I sleep with my Alexa on, so I just playing talk radio. And it kept turning itself up, and I thought, well, it must be a fault in the electrics.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was paranormal at first. But then it was like, when I've like gone out of the room and forgot to turn it off, it stays the same volume all the time, but I was always doing it at night. And one night I woke up because there was something moved in my room, something poltergeisty. And then I heard a woman whisper right by my Alexa, and then it turned up like all the way to the top. And you heard the buttons go boop, 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 boop. And I'm just like, and I was like, right, I've asked you before, because like, if there was, because I was saying before, stop it, I need to sleep, you wake you up. And I probably lost it. I was like, we're going to fall out. I'll block you. I'll trap you in this room with salt, and then you'll be weak. So you can either choose to stop doing that, or we'll have a war. But I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, but it could well have been exactly that test for you. That test of you have to have your boundaries up, because otherwise spirit world will draw close to you all the time. You're interesting. They want to do that communication, but you are the one in control. And that's a really big thing to know, that is that they're not in control of you. You have the final decision, because you're the one walking the earth plane. You're the one that knows whether you need more sleep, whether you're not in the right place to deliver a message to somebody at that particular point, whether you yourself just need some healing, that actually you go and sit down quietly, and anyone can do this, is just to ask the spirit world for healing and sit yourself quietly for about 10 minutes and then just say thank you, and that healing will have been given because you've asked for it. So they always respond to those requests. They just can't intervene unless it's an act of mercy. So you can be pretty much dying, but until you're nearly dead, they can't butt in, because you get to choose. You're the one here that's living. But yeah, that will have been a test for you, because you're not very good at closing down, are you? And there's lots of, I don't know, connection with the spirit world while you are supposed to be asleep. And you don't get enough sleep anyway.
What sleep? I've got a couple more questions, and then depending, obviously we've gone on a while and don't know how tired you are, but just to, if you want to answer some questions from social media. But I think this question, I can't believe I've never asked you before in all the years I've known you, because I've got very strong views on it. What are your views on people using things like Ouija boards?
Well, would you like my actual experience of it?
Yeah, go on, tell us, yeah.
Because I've used one long time ago, like kids do. I think I was like 15-ish. So there was me in a group that did our little bit of messing around on a Ouija board. And we got directed to something that turned out to be exactly where they said it was going to be. And that was like, oh my God, wow. Do you know what I mean? So that was like, we had some really good evidence. But returned to school, because this was during the 6-week holidays when I was a kid at school, went back, and another group had also done their own Ouija board.
Right.
Every single person in the other group was injured during the 6-week holiday. They'd all had quite significant things happen. Caravan overturn. One girl had, I think she'd been doing like high jump or something like that, and her muscle was ripped out of her leg. Significant injuries or significant incidents for all of them. And obviously I didn't understand till a lot later on. I probably was already working with the spirit world at that point, so our little group had some protection. So yes, we got communication, but we only got interesting or curious stuff, if you know what I mean. So Ouija boards, are absolutely a tool to be used for communication with the spirit world. But if you're not opening up in prayer, if you're not seeking out the highest, the brightest and the best, you are opening a portal to anywhere. You have no idea what portal you're opening it up to. You also don't know your group members. So there might be one of your group members that actually is secretly into something that you're not. And they could be calling all kinds of stuff in. There's always been darker stuff out there in the world, always been. And if you don't, would you open your front door and invite somebody in who you didn't know who it was? Not really, you wouldn't, would you?
No.
And this is the same thing, except you're opening an unseen door and not knowing whose energy is coming in.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it for the right reasons and you're gonna put some protection in place and all of that kind of stuff, that you're only going to work at that higher level, you might have some more control over it. But the others that are doing it out of curiosity and want anything and everything to come in, questionable for me. You know.
And just because something says it's your grandma named Alice doesn't mean it is. They just, whatever it is, knows that you had a grandma named Alice.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I forgot to say this, because like when the spirit world come in, it's when you're doing a demonstration of mediumship, you kind of have your team that work behind the scenes for you and with you. So we all have 5 main guides and inspirers, and they all have helpers of their own. So it's a little bit like a theatre production behind. Is that so? Even from the morning of the day that you're doing whatever, there'll be lots of things happening in the background. There'll be people that turn up to a church late because they've been encouraged to go late because their family member does want a conversation with them, and they're all essentially like in order. So the people that need their messages the most are the ones that get them first. Right. And if you go to a church and you're desperate for a message but you don't get one, it's because you don't actually need one. And that in itself is comforting.
Yeah.
Not getting a message means you're okay, or you're more okay than you think you are. So you'll have somebody from spirit on the other side holding the vibrational frequency. You'll have a runner who's going to get, "Oh, Mrs. Smith, we need you next," you know, because we're moving on. That kind of stuff. There's a whole heap of stuff goes on behind the scenes.
My last question, you touched upon it earlier on with extraterrestrials. I just wondered, we've had disclosure, and I think I was surprised, particularly as the government for half a century had been trying to make out it wasn't real because they were terrified of what people would do. There's been disclosure, and I think I've been surprised at the apathy of everyone, that these things, whatever they are, there are unexplained aerial phenomena. What's been your view of the disclosure?
Well, I think on a human level, people are just like, everybody just sighs at the moment. Nobody's surprised by anything, are they, anymore?
It's just fast moving of news as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that there's been enough stuff happening out there generally that we've all probably known it for a long time. Because what disclosure have we really had? Have you seen anything really on the news that says Roswell is right or whatever? What pictures have we seen? What have they really shown us? They might have said, "Oh, yes, we're working with the government, all of that kind of stuff." That's been known for a long time if you've been in this field. You know, I remember a long time ago learning that the extraterrestrials have exchanged their information. That's where we got the stealth bomber from.
Right.
So they gave their information in order that we could build the stealth bomber. And I'm a bit like shrugging of the shoulders. It's like, so what's new? We've known for a long time. They've just kept it hidden. How much stuff is out there that we know is hidden from us? And yeah, I think people will believe it more if we had lots of them visit. I think people are now at the point of like, give me some real evidence or I'm just not interested. Same with crop circles. Crop circles are still happening.
Yeah.
But people insist, you know, it's somebody running around a field with a plank.
And a couple were. And,
you know, and some will be.
Now.
Yeah.
That's what they think they all
yeah.
are. Despite there's been somewhere, there's been cameras,
yeah.
a mist comes in.
Yeah.
And then they're all tied to the point where it said that it would take, you know, an army to do that, and it would take this long because you would need that many people, but you also then would get people in the way. So like it would take weeks to do it, but there it is. And strange electromagnetic fields within it and all sorts.
Because they're all in a very similar area. You know, they're all in a similar area. And so what happened there? There is so much that we don't know, so much that we don't know. I've seen recently about how much that our land has had additional, let's say, soil or earth movement, and so much stuff is hidden. You know, there's a whole heap of things. You know, we've got Roman roads, however many feet down below our own roads.
Well, we did that investigation, and there was we were underground, but actually that was the street level,
Exactly.
like a few hundred years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's just so much, and I think the underlying thing for me is we can't know everything about everything. But then other stuff has come out. So I've known for a long time about remote viewing. So if remote viewing is possible and has been taking place, and that there are huge things that are 7 stories or more underground, why wouldn't there be ETs? Why wouldn't we have all kinds of everything? Of course we're going to have it, you know. And so it's a little bit going back to the artist. Where do we think M. Night Shyamalan got all of his stuff from? His amazing films that he did, you know, they came from somewhere. We're always fed it, aren't we? So even if we laugh at The Simpsons, that's predicted all kinds of stuff. The photographs and the images that are all there. There is just somebody somewhere that's just however many steps in front of us. And we're just all a bit on the lag behind, you know, and then they allow us to catch up. You know, anyone who thinks our TVs and phones are listening to us, etc., etc., we've known that for a long time. But I'm sure that when we first ever got a mobile phone, we never thought that was possible.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Yeah, of course they are.
We've even done tricks speaking about certain things, and then like stuff that's not related to us. Because I heard an expert on the radio go, "No, it's the algorithms have got that good to assess who you are." So we're like, okay, let's talk about Pinkertons dressed as ballerinas, you know, and we'll say with Sean, who's a doorman, you know, and then the next thing we'll get ballerina outfits advertised. So they definitely are listening.
Totally. I had very good evidence of that quite some time ago. What else did you ask me? Sorry, James.
I just it was just saying that were you surprised at that we've had disclosure? And no one's been...
not at all. Because what disclosure have we had? That's the big thing for me. We haven't had any. They've talked about it as if, we have a chat with them and we have this, that and the other, or whatever. Where's the evidence? Not shown us any evidence. Not shown any autopsy, any craft. Where is it? It's just words. Just words.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you some questions on social media, but my battery's completely dead, so I can't. So apologies if you replied and wanted a question. Maybe that's for another night. So before we go, where can people find your work, and have you got any final messages for anyone?
Final messages. I would say, don't discount what you don't know. Have a bit more of an open mind, but have an open mind that wants to challenge people, you know, question. Like I said earlier, if you observe a medium at work, if you go sit in some churches, you know, yes, no, not sure. Don't feed a medium ever. And if you ever watch a medium that's asking questions, leave.
Yeah. It's
not a conversation. Their job is to link with the spirit world and be in alpha frequency. Remember that. James can pass any sort of communication on to me. My life's a little bit in flux at the moment, so I'm sure James can pass you some stuff on. And messages can come through James's Facebook page. which I'm on anyway, but I don't seem to answer anything. Maybe I should start. This is an amazing field to be in, to know that that life is eternal, and that all that happens to us is that the physical body that we inhabit to move around this earth plane, that drops away, and the energy that animates us as the person that we are lives on. You ask anyone who's in their, I don't know, the later end of life, what age they feel, because we judge on the way somebody looks. You ask most people who are older, and they will not say that they feel anything other than their mid-20s in their mind. You are the same person whose body just happens to shift from being young and alive and vibrant to a loss of energy and through change, so that we can return to the spirit world. Can you imagine if we all lived forever with a decaying body or whatever? We get a chance to go home. We come on the earth plane for whatever length of school life we need, and then we return to spirit, have a bit of a breather, and then put our hand up for the next mission that we've been given. That would be my thing, and it's a learning journey. Read what you can, talk to however many people you can, keep an open mind.
Pamela, thank you for joining the 14 News podcast.
Thank you for having me, James.